I've been playing Dokkan since December of 2015 and have been present for the release of every challenging event in the game's history. And with the recent release of the quote-unquote hardest event in Dokkan history, I decided to rank the most difficult events in Dokkan history on release. Starting with number 10, Dokkan Event Boss Rush Stage 2. This stage was sort of the original festival of battles. You had to go through 14 different Dokkan events in a single sitting, which would take up to 2 hours to complete. This event was released in January of 2017 on the Japanese version, back when Dokkan events were still the most difficult content around. Many people would use up all 8 of their items and still have several Dokkan events left to go through. An absolutely brutal stage on release. Number 9, Fighting Legend Goku. Released on Goku Day 2019, this event was one battle consisting of 8 different phases. The last 2 phases of this fight in particular was where things became dire. Before you could get to UI Goku at the end, you had to get through the Gatekeeper phase, UI Sign. You see, the last phase of this event is Int, so ideally you would want to bring many physical units to counter it. Well, the thing is, Dokkan made UI Sign STR, and made him hit really hard. Additionally, UI Sign had a shit ton of HP, and also had a 10% chance to dodge all attacks. And if that wasn't enough, UI Goku at the end has a 20% chance to dodge, and disables evasion. The reason this fight isn't higher on the list is because once people figured out that characters that stack defense were key for this fight, it became a lot less scary. To add on, the best unit in the game at the time, LR Kale and Khalifa, completely obliterated this fight. Also, the tech Golden Week Trunks that released several days prior was also quite dominant. Number 8, Extreme Super Battle Road. On Saiyan Day of 2020, Dokkan released an upgraded version of Super Battle Road. Being restricted to monotype teams greatly limits team building options in an event where enemies can blow your back out at any moment. However, since this event was structured the exact same as the original Super Battle Road, many people were already familiar with the strategies needed to conquer this event, and had more options available to debuff the enemies and survive their onslaught. As a result, despite still being very difficult, Extreme Super Battle Road was nowhere near as terrifying as the original. But the Extreme Tech stage though. Number 7, Festival of Battles. Spots 4 to 7 on this list can be rearranged however you want, but I think they are all at a similar level of difficulty, and are comfortably sitting in the middle area of this top 10. The thing with this event is that despite being a 50 phase event, only the last few phases are at all challenging. This event is more tedious than difficult, but those last 3 to 4 phases are not to be underestimated. The real difficulty of this event is the limited charge count, and this is most noticeable with Glorio and Goku, who are the true problem phase of this event. They super for 17.5 million each, and have almost as much HP combined as Goku and Vegeta at the end. Once you get past them, however, as long as you still have most of your active skills available from the 7th and 10th anniversary LRs, you can blow past Gogeta and Vegito. This event is certainly very difficult, but definitely not the hardest event in the history of the game. Number 6, Red Zone Fusion Zamasu. Sort of an inverse of the Festival of Battles, this event is only 2 phases long, but was difficult right out of the gate. Released in September of 2023, this was one of the most frustrating events ever due to your first turn deciding everything. In Fusion Zamasu's AoE completely decimated over 95% of the game, and he also had a damage threshold that invalidated pretty much all normal attacks and weaker super attacks. If you were able to get to phase 2, you were greeted by Physical Fusion Zamasu, who supered for over 2 million damage and did 1 million damage normals, which wrecked 99% of the game. Easily one of the most toxic fights ever. Number 5, Fearsome Activation Cell Max. Released in August of 2022, this event was described by Dokkan to replicate the despair that characters in the movie felt fighting Cell Max. And boy did it make people feel despair. The first 2 phases of this event are complete baby mode, which gives your characters no time to build up before reaching phase 3. Once you do get to Tech Cell Max, shit hits the fan quick. The super attack damage skyrockets from 400k to 1.8 million. Just as a reminder, the hardest hitting boss super at the time was Red Zone Omega Shenron, who had a 2-turn countdown into a 1.5 million super. Cell Max was doing 300k more for free and could super up to twice per turn, on top of having a 50% chance to lock character switching. And don't even get me started on that special pose mission. Number 4. Red Zone Broly. The hardest Red Zone fight of all time. Released in February of 2022 during the 7th anniversary, Red Zone Broly cancelled dodge throughout the entire fight. Not only that, but Phase 3 against STR Broly consisted of an AoE super that would kill anybody who wasn't AGL or named Tech God Goku. And not only that, the final phase consisted of AGL Broly, who double supered for 1.2 million. Needless to say, Red Zone Broly completely invalidated most of the game, and was capable of even blowing away the new 7th anniversary LRs. He was so difficult that no item runs against Broly did not start popping up until a day or two after his release. And yet, despite the ridiculousness of Red Zone Broly, Zamasu, and Cell Max, they do not even crack the top 3 on this list. And that is because these next 3 events were nearly impossible to do unless you had the exact characters required. Number 3. Super Saiyan 3 Goku Extreme Z Battle. The very first EZA event ever, released in November of 2017 on JP, and this stage was basically impossible to complete unless you had the recently released Angel Golden Frieza, who led Resurrected Warriors. And even then, it was extremely difficult to beat level 30 Goku, who was one-shotting any unit he supered that wasn't tech. This event was so hard that the recommended strategy for most players was to use Devilman, a SR unit from the Dragon Ball Saga World Tournament banner, who had a 1% chance to get a 1,000,000% attack boost on super attack. However, Super Saiyan 3 Goku at level 30 could sometimes survive Devilman's super when he got the 1% proc. So your Devilman needed to have a few super attack levels and be run under an actual leader skill. This means that you would be running him on mono AGL teams and would have to pray you open with Golden Frieza. So he can sit in slot 1 and you can proc the 1% with Devilman in slot 2. I remember attempting over 150 runs clearing the last few levels with Devilman, because otherwise I wouldn't have stood a chance without the new shiny Dokkan Fest. Devilman was so prominent for the first few EZA stages that he was eventually banned from Extreme Z battles altogether and from other difficult content stages. Number 2. STR Broly Dokkan Event. The very first Dokkan event was released in September of 2015 on JP and February of 2016 for Global. STR Broly had a Rampage mode that greatly reduced the amount of damage he took. Broly's Rampage could be disabled with the passive skill, Disable Rampage, or with the link skill, Blazing Battle. So in other words, if you didn't have the new family Kamehameha units, you were f***ed. Broly had a shit ton of HP, and his AoE pretty much resulted in instant death. The only other viable strategy was to use AGL Kaioken Goku, who stacked attack and could eventually carry the damage. This event was so difficult that many players would use Dragon Stones to revive themselves. I myself remember using 6 or 7 Dragon Stones just to beat Broly for the first time, on top of using 8 items and a bunch of stunners/sealers. This could easily be argued as number 1 on this list. Those who played the game back then know just how hopeless this event felt on release, without the newest summonable units. Number 1. Super Battle Road. Original Super Battle Road is the most difficult event in the history of the game. This is the event that started the conversation of artificial difficulty in Dokkan. If you did not pop an item in any given turn, chances were very high that you would be greeted with a game over screen. The bosses attacked so frequently and so hard that even the newest Dokkan Fest at the time were getting slaughtered. On top of that, managing 8 items over the course of 4 separate fights further added to the difficulty of this event. The most notorious stage of the 10 was easily Extreme Tech versus Super AGL, due to Extreme Tech having such an awful roster at the time. I remember not seeing clears on that stage until many months after the event had already been released. Super Battle Road was so challenging, they even compared the legendary Goku event to it in its event announcement page. Despite the legendary Goku event releasing over 2 years after Super Battle Road. The fact that there were 10 of these impossibly hard stages, each being hopeless to defeat even with the newest units of each type, further cements this as the #1 entry on this list. And that's my ranking of the most difficult events in Dokkan history. Let me know which parts you agree with and which parts you disagree with down in the comments below. I'll see you guys next time.